Hey guys, welcome to Super 61 and welcome to a brand new video. Now today I am doing something which I have never done on the channel before, and that is a commentary of an online race. Now the reason I'm showing you guys this race is it was a pretty exciting and eventful race, and for myself it was a really enjoyable race to take part in, even though things didn't quite go to plan, but that actually added to the drama and the excitement. So I thought today we could talk through it, take a look at it and see how it went down. Now to begin with, this was just an open lobby that I found by going through the server search on Competizione. It wasn't part of any league or the SimGrid daily races. I was just looking for a Silverstone race, as this is the track I am definitely the quickest on, the most confident on, and I have the quickest race pace on. So for the first race of the day, I try and find Silverstone as it's something I can get warmed up with and usually have pretty good results. Now usually when I'm racing online, I spend most of my time in the SimGrid daily events, and that's mainly because in there I find you normally have cleaner races, you get like-minded drivers who want to just have a good clean race, and you're not going to get smashed off or get somebody trying to take you out intentionally. But recently a friend of mine showed me something which I wasn't aware of, which you can search for open lobbies by cleanliness. So you can set your settings that it will find the lobbies that have the cleanest races, that usually have the cleanest drivers, and there's not a lot of crashes or incidents. Now that for me is important because I'm not a quick driver. I've never protested to be the fastest driver, but I try and be a clean driver as best as possible. You'll see in this race there is a few contacts, one of which is very questionable. Like, I actually didn't feel a contact, I didn't get any kind of penalty for it, which, you know, this game usually crucifies you for even the slightest kiss of a bumper. But when I watched the replay, it looks like I made contact. It does actually knock his vehicle, but there was no kind of sensation of it or even noise of it as I was racing, and as I said, there was no penalty. So we'll get to that later on, but yeah, you know, I try and be as clean as possible. I try not to make any dangerous moves, but sometimes these things are unavoidable. Now at the start of this race, whilst I've been talking, I qualified 7th, and I started the race in 7th place. Now normally in these open lobbies, half the grid don't bother qualifying, or they join too late to bother qualifying, or they just want to start the back and don't bother putting a qualifying lap in. But I qualified 7th, and then at the start, if you did notice, a few of the cars must have not clicked drive in time, or their player was AFK, and they disappeared from the grid and started in the pits. Now, this is where things went badly from the get-go. I actually got a drive-through penalty straight away for starting the race in the wrong position. Now, it was right at the start of the video, but you may have noticed, I know there's no kind of HUD on screen here, this is the replay that you're watching here. I didn't get any warning of that. Usually, it's very promptive. It tells you, you need to be further back, further forward, to the left, to the right, especially if players have been shuffled around because people have been moved to the pits. I got no warning. I was in the right band with my acceleration as the lights went green, and off I went. Because a couple of people had been moved around and gone to the pits, I actually was in 4th place, and I'm still in 4th place here as the race started. But I was seen in the corner that I had a drive-through penalty, which I had 3 laps to serve. So by this point I thought, well, I'm going to go as quick as I can for these 3 laps, try and put as much distance between me and the mid-pack as I possibly can. So hopefully once I've served this penalty and I'm back out onto the track, I'm not left behind with no chance of getting back into the race. But you'll also notice at this point there's a Ferrari behind me who was definitely a little bit quicker through these corners here and was gaining on me, and I thought if I can try and slow him down as much as possible, you know, not just give up this position as quick as I can because I've got a pit, I can make his life a little bit more difficult, which, you know, might make things easier for me further down the line. Now, as I said earlier, this is definitely the track I'm quickest on. My fastest ever lap on this, which I put up on YouTube last week, is a 1 minute 59, which normally now when I qualify I can do a 2 minute dead, or I can just drop into that 1 minute 59 mark. But in this server, as you'll see, a couple of the guys ahead here were pretty quick. They were starting to get a little bit away from me here, but my race pace on this with the right settings on a long race, I'm usually setting times of 2 minutes dead or 2 minutes and 1 second. Especially a race like this, which isn't too long at 18 minutes, and there's no tyre wear, and I think the track optimization was staying how it was. So if your concentration is still there, I know sometimes on longer races you kind of lapse in and out of concentration and sometimes slow down, but on a race like this, if you can stay concentrated, there's no reason you can't keep banging out nice and quick lap times. So as we jump ahead a lap here, the Ferrari is now in a position to make a move on me. Down this straight, he's starting to move up the outside. I'm giving him space. As I said, I'm consciously aware that I don't want to take anybody out, especially on the 3rd lap of the race. And as you'll see here, he gets the job done and he gets around the outside of me. But the pressure on him here, I think, gets a little bit too much, and he absolutely overcooks it into this chicane, and off he goes. He makes the decision to cut across the grass, and I think he loses all temperature in his tyres because he seems to start sliding around a little bit here, and when he gets back onto the track, he seems to have very little traction, and I am back past him, and I've taken back 4th place. So as we jump ahead to the end of this same lap here, this is my last opportunity to serve this penalty. I had 3 laps to do it, and this is the 3rd lap of the race. Now luckily it wasn't a stop and go penalty, it was just a drive through, so I simply had to put the pit limiter on and just drive at 50 miles an hour through the pits and out the other side. Now at this point I am just desperately watching the map watching all the little circles of other drivers coming past me. Now by this stage, as I entered the pits, I was in 4th place, and there were 22 drivers in this race, but as you can see on the right hand side, 2 drivers have already been disqualified or retired from the race, and I was hoping if I can leave the pits and maybe be in 17th or 18th place, I might have a chance of still having an enjoyable race. Now as I leave the pits here, I actually come out in 16th place, and I am right behind a little fight of 3 cars as we go through Maggots and Beckett's. Now straight away, coming through these corners here, I'm aware that I am definitely faster than these guys. They're braking on corners that you don't need to, they're braking heavily, and because they're challenging each other, they are going particularly slow. Now as I said before, I don't pretend to be a fast driver, but I knew I was quicker than these guys, and I needed to get past them quickly if I had any chance to move up and catch the rest of the pack ahead of them. Now as we're heading down this straight, the Ferrari at the front of this pack loses position to all 3 of us pretty quickly. The Lamborghini outdoes him on the straight there and goes up the outside. The Ferrari outbrakes and cuts up the inside. He leaves the door open and I can just drive straight on through. So he's lost 3 places and I have gained my 1st place back since I pitted. Now this is the first lap that I was following these guys, so I was still uncertain of how confident they were, which corners they knew well, which they were a little bit weaker on, and this is where I had my first collision. If you know this game well, you'll know at the end of this start-finish line here, the first right-hand corner is a no-brake zone. You literally stick to the left, lift off, drop a gear as you hit the apex, back on the power, and you don't need to brake. The Ferrari in front obviously didn't know that. He hits the brakes pretty hard, and I pretty much just kissed the back of him. Now I say that because I got no penalty for that. I felt no sensation of it. There was no movement in my steering wheel, there's no knocking noise, no bang. It didn't affect me, my speed at all. And the main thing being I didn't get a penalty, which this game normally crucifies you for even looking at a player too hard. So the fact that I apparently hit the back of him is a little bit questionable. At the time I didn't actually think I did. I just thought he kind of lost control coming back on the power out of that corner, or braked too hard as he was turning and lost control. And watching the replay, I couldn't actually see if I did make full contact with him, but either way, afterwards I did feel bad if it was on my fault that he spun out. But as I said, I did not expect him to brake on that corner, especially so hard, as that's a corner you can just lift off and go through pretty quickly. So now I'm up behind this Lamborghini, which I already knew he wasn't the fastest driver, and I was definitely going to get opportunity to get past him, but it was just, playing it safe, building up and getting close behind him before I can make a move safely without getting knocked off, because I'm always a little bit cautious in these races, especially if you're at the back of the pack and you're racing drivers who aren't the quickest. They may also not be the safest, so sometimes you've got to be a little bit wary getting past these guys if you don't want to get smashed off. Now as we were cutting through Maggots and Beckett's here, I really gained on this guy because he was braking in zones you just don't need to brake on, especially in the Aston Martin. It's so stable. The first corner's flat out, the second you just lift, and then the 3rd and 4th you do have to hit the brakes and drop a gear. But as you can see, I closed the gap down a lot just in the space of those short corners there, and I knew as we were piling along the straight I was going to have a chance to get past him on the inside as we entered this long right-hander. Now props to the guy driving the Lamborghini there. He saw me coming in his mirrors. He didn't try and close the door on me too last minute and just send us both off. He left a space, he allowed me to come through, and that was a nice clean pass. So next up was another group of Ferraris. This entire race seemed to be dominated by Ferraris, but they were quite a few seconds ahead of me, so I had to get my foot down, get my head down, and try and make up that distance and catch up with the next pack. So as if by magic, 2 laps later I have closed that gap, and I am now getting into the range where I can start looking at making a move on the cars ahead. Now similar to the last group, there were quite a few corners that these guys weren't as confident on, and again I want to stress that I don't think I am a great driver, but I do know this track quite well. Even though I don't always manage to achieve and execute my maneuvers on this track that well, I do know where you can get away with going faster, where you can get away with not braking, and these guys were braking pretty hard at corners that you don't need to. As you go through Maggots and Beckett here, you'll see they take braking zones that you just really don't need to, which it's not a great place to overtake, but it gives you a chance to close that gap and catch up with them, especially that last corner before the straight. If you can get on the power early there, that'll give you a real advantage all the way down that straight, and if you're within range of other drivers, you're going to get that chance to get by them. Now interestingly, the situation here is pretty similar to a few laps ago. I've got 3 cars ahead of me. The lead car here actually loses out on this corner. The job doesn't get done quite as neatly or as completely as on the previous laps. He goes wide a little bit by braking too late. The yellow Ferrari there goes up the inside. I try to follow him, but there isn't quite enough space or time to close the gap on him, and he stays ahead of me here, and I'm aware I've got to be careful with these next chicanes. He's on the inside of me, so I don't want to try and cut in across and take him out. So I end up losing the space to him there again because I wanted to be cautious and not end up punting myself or him off the track there, so took that corner off the actual racing line. But it's not an issue because I know this next right-hander, these guys are going to brake where you don't need to, and I can close that gap. And sure enough, the brake lights come on and I minimise that gap. Now that corner really isn't a corner for making manoeuvres and trying to overtake. It's too much of a fast sweeping corner. But if you can close the gap and try and get past him for the next tight chicane like this and get up the inside for that left-hander, you can hopefully close the door on him. It's a pretty slow corner, but you can get the job done, get past them, and the place is yours. Now again, this corner here is all about getting on the power as early as possible and keeping the traction down so you can try and build up as much speed and momentum down this straight as possible. As you can see, these guys ahead of me now are about 100 meters ahead, but the car in the lead of these two actually brakes at the complete wrong time, goes wide, gives up the position to the yellow Ferrari, and then comes back onto the track ahead of me, but he's set himself up awfully for the next corner, and I'm going to try and sneak up the inside here, and I've got to be cautious not to try and run too wide on the exit and push him off, or, not give him enough room. But he stays where he is, I give him space, and I just about get past, and that's now the 4th position I've taken since we've rejoined the track. So now as we jump ahead to the next lap, I'm catching up with that yellow Ferrari again, who's also caught up with another black Ferrari. So now these two are starting to battle it out, which is actually slowing them down a little bit, which is giving me a chance to catch up with the pair of them. Now this is where things go a little bit south, which is a little bit annoying, but those two have contact there. The yellow one, I think, is clipped by the front of the black one. He gets sent off and goes sliding off, but he's not too lost. You can see him in the mirror. He's not too far behind us. Now this is where, again, as I said, trying to overtake people through Maggots and Becker is dangerous, so I actually slam on the anchors there and let him through. He starts to slide, I start to slide, and it's kind of a racing incident there. We just slide into the side of each other, luckily onto the tarmac so I don't lose too much time. But the black and the yellow Ferrari both passed me there, including this Ferrari that I passed much earlier on, but he is going quite slowly, so by the end of this straight I can make short work of him again. He just seems to brake way too soon. I'm quite a far distance behind him and I can just outbrake him and tuck up the inside there. But now I only have a few laps left to try and gain on these yellow and black Ferraris again and try and take these places back. Now by this stage, as you can see, it is the last lap. The fireworks are going. The race leader, I think, has crossed the line, and I am closing the gap on these guys. If there was just one extra lap left, I could have definitely got past these guys again. As you can see, I'm trying everything I can without going too far and losing the car to try and close the gap on these guys, but with just one corner left, it really wasn't going to happen. I actually thought maybe if I could get on the power soon enough coming out of this corner, you'll see I really make gains on the black Ferrari here, especially because he slides off onto the gravel a little bit. If the finish line was an extra 100 meters further back, I would have definitely just about pipped him. But as you can see, we crossed the line just about behind those two guys, which is disappointing, but at the same time, what a great race. It was such a good battle, and it's probably the most exciting and my most enjoyable race I've had online to date, which was pretty funny to say it happened in just an open lobby. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that video with you guys. I ended up going from 4th place to 16th place to 8th place, so it wasn't a bad race overall. 8th place isn't the best in the world, especially when you started 4th, but kind of moving back through the pack was very, very enjoyable. Trying to be as clean but as efficient as possible. It's quite a challenge, but it is good fun. If you'd like to see more videos like this, tell me down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.